Moonlight barely filtered through the dense canopy of birches and pines, casting shadows on the broken village paths. It was quiet, unnaturally quiet. Only the occasional rustle of footsteps on branches and leaves could be heard. One would think even the wind feared to disturb this silence. At the edge of the square, among the ruins of what had once been a thriving homestead, she stood. A 23-year-old woman, hands bound with rope, hair loose, face calm and smiling. A smile that could seem insane to anyone who didn't know what it meant. Moments before, the small village, having endured days of tense skirmishes in the surrounding forests, had been at peace. The residents hid in basements, old buildings looked abandoned, like ghosts of the past. And then suddenly, the roar of engines, shouting, and the clatter of heavy boots. SS officers stormed into the village, armed to the teeth, faces cold as stone. Their plan was simple: intimidate, subjugate, punish. Each step of their heavy boots echoed like a sentence. They were searching for partisans, but their main target was her, the young woman accused of aiding the resistance. Her husband had been killed the year before, and she had become a courier, scout, observer, and guide for those defending their land. She had survived more raids and traps than anyone could imagine. And now, she stood before an officer who held a pistol to her temple, expecting her to break. He raised his weapon, fingers tense on the trigger, demanding the location of the partisan hideouts. People around held their breath. They expected fear, screams, tears. She only smiled. That smile was a signal. Not an act of madness or carelessness, it was a sign she gave to her comrades. A signal that would trigger dozens of eyes hidden on rooftops, in barns, and among the trees. In that moment, she was not a captive. She was the commander of a situation the officer did not even suspect. A single second passed, and time began to shift. Gunfire erupted simultaneously from all sides. The pistol slipped from the officer's hands as his face registered shock. His eyes could not see what he had truly held in his hands: control over people's lives. He held only a fleeting moment, long gone for those who had planned his trap. The partisans surged from their cover, and the gunfire, which seemed chaotic at first, proved precise and coordinated. This was no accident, it was logistics, planning, and cold determination. Moonlight, shadows, shot-up buildings, the sound of gunfire, and screams, all became a stage where she was the leading actor. Only then did the officer realize he was not in control. He was caught in a trap created by the woman standing before him, smiling calmly. The moment the first shot rang out, the village erupted into chaos. Roofs became vantage points, barns transformed into fortresses, and the lines of trees concealed dozens of waiting fighters. The SS unit, confident and methodical just seconds before, now scrambled, disoriented, unsure where the fire was coming from. She remained standing in the square, still smiling, still calm. Every movement around her had been calculated in advance. The village itself had been prepared for this day for weeks. Hidden caches of weapons, pre-positioned lookouts, and secret paths through the rubble allowed the resistance to strike with precision. A hail of bullets tore through the open courtyard. Officers ducked behind broken walls, soldiers fell as shots came from angles they could never anticipate. Smoke mingled with dust and moonlight, creating a surreal, almost dreamlike battlefield. For the SS men, the calm they had expected was replaced by sudden terror. The village they thought defenseless was alive, brimming with resistance. She ducked instinctively as a bullet whizzed past, but her expression betrayed no fear. Every shot fired, every movement made, was part of the plan. In barns and behind fences, comrades moved swiftly, coordinating their attack as though guided by a single mind. The once quiet streets now echoed with the clash of war, the shouts of fighters, and the panicked screams of the intruders. Officers tried to regroup, attempting to organize counterattacks, but each maneuver was anticipated. Traps set earlier, concealed pits, tripwires, and barricades slowed their progress. Horses stampeded in the chaos, carts overturned, and the smell of smoke and gunpowder filled the air. The SS men, trained for combat, realized too late that they were now prey in a carefully constructed hunting ground. In the midst of the carnage, she moved with surprising grace. She signaled with subtle gestures, guiding the younger fighters, pointing out targets, coordinating retreats. She was everywhere and nowhere at once, a phantom presence that kept the ambush running seamlessly. Every action she had taken in preparation for this day now bore fruit. The balance of power, which had seemed hopelessly in favor of the occupiers only minutes before, had shifted entirely. By dawn, the firing slowed. The surviving SS officers had either fled or been captured. The village, though scarred by battle, stood defiant. Walls were riddled with bullet holes, smoke still curled from the barns, but the people inside knew they had won a crucial victory. The young woman, the heart of the ambush, finally lowered her gaze. Her hands were still tied, her hair dusted with soot, but her smile now carried the weight of triumph rather than defiance. In that moment, she became a symbol, proof that even in occupied lands, courage and cunning could overturn the mightiest forces. The villagers, emboldened by her leadership, knew that the forest and the ruins of their homes could be weapons just as powerful as any army. The officer who had pressed a gun to her head had underestimated one thing: she was never the victim. She was always the strategist, the signal, and the spark that ignited resistance. The village had survived, and the war outside its borders would never look the same to those who had seen what a single, fearless heart could do. The first light of dawn revealed the full aftermath of the night's ambush. Smoke still lingered over the village, curling from shattered roofs and splintered barns. Bodies, both friend and foe, lay scattered across the cobblestones and forest edges, a grim reminder of the price of defiance. Yet among the villagers, a sense of calm triumph had taken hold. They had survived, and they had struck back. She walked through the square, her hands still bound, observing the faces around her. Villagers peered cautiously from windows and doorways, their eyes reflecting a mixture of fear, relief, and awe. The woman who had been a target had become their beacon. Her smile from the previous night now seemed less an act of courage and more a symbol, one that reassured everyone that even in the darkest hour, control was possible. Nearby, young fighters were already tending to the wounded, dragging them from the open streets to makeshift shelters. Others checked the barricades and reinforced traps, preparing for the possibility of another incursion. She gave concise, silent directions, a nod here, a hand gesture there, and the village responded with remarkable discipline. Every movement was efficient, every choice deliberate, a testament to the careful preparation that had made the ambush possible. News of the ambush spread quickly through the surrounding forests. Partisan groups in neighboring villages heard of the young woman's bravery and the complete rout of the SS unit. Her actions inspired them to rethink their strategies. The forest was not just a place of hiding, but a weapon. The villages themselves could be transformed into traps, each resident a potential participant in resistance. By mid-morning, messengers arrived from nearby hamlets, bringing word of other skirmishes, the status of troops, and reports of enemy reinforcements. She listened intently, weighing every piece of information. Even now, her mind was calculating, anticipating the enemy's next moves and adjusting the network of resistance accordingly. Her hands remained bound, but her authority was unquestioned. The irony was not lost on anyone. The woman who had been taken captive commanded a larger battlefield than the enemy could ever see. Through the day, the villagers began repairing what they could. Roofs were patched, doors reinforced, and hidden weapons stockpiled once more. Yet the psychological impact of her actions was even more profound than the physical. Fear had been replaced with confidence. Despair had been replaced with determination. The villagers were no longer passive bystanders in the war, they had become participants, empowered by the example of one fearless individual. As the sun set, she finally allowed herself a moment of reflection. The events of the night and the following day were not just a victory in battle, they were proof of what strategy, courage, and composure under pressure could achieve. In the villages and forests of occupied Belarus, stories of her actions began to spread quietly among partisans. Her smile had been more than a signal, it had become a legend, a spark that would ignite resistance far beyond the boundaries of her own village. Even the officer who had pressed a gun to her head would become a cautionary tale. He had underestimated one truth: defiance, when carefully orchestrated, could be more powerful than any weapon, and courage could turn the tides of war in ways that brute force never could. Weeks passed after the ambush, but the village remained on high alert. The SS unit had been routed, but news of the defeat had reached nearby towns, and reprisals were a constant threat. The young woman, whose courage had sparked the ambush, continued to serve not only as a scout but as the strategic heart of the local resistance network. Every action she took now carried weight far beyond the village square. The villagers rebuilt cautiously. Roofs were patched, and barricades reinforced. Hidden caches of food and weapons were restocked. Children were taught the secret paths and signals that would allow them to evade soldiers if the village was attacked again. The village had been transformed, physically and psychologically. The ordinary streets and abandoned buildings were now the arteries of resistance, flowing with the knowledge that courage could turn the tide. Her reputation spread quickly through the forests of Belarus. Partisans from neighboring settlements came to meet her, to learn from her tactics, to witness the poise and intelligence that had allowed a single woman to orchestrate a decisive ambush. They marveled at how she had transformed fear into opportunity, how her calm smile had served as a signal, and how she had anticipated every move of an enemy that believed itself all-powerful. Even as the war raged on around them, the village now had a renewed sense of agency. They were no longer passive victims of occupation, they were participants in shaping their destiny. Her story became an unspoken lesson: bravery combined with preparation could create power where there seemed to be none. A single act of defiance could ripple outward, inspiring coordinated action that even the mightiest enemy could not anticipate. The SS officer who had pressed a pistol to her head was never forgotten. His arrogance and underestimation became a cautionary tale whispered among enemy ranks. For him, that night was a loss he would never fully comprehend. For her, it was a victory that symbolized more than survival, it was proof that the oppressed could reclaim agency, even under the shadow of death. As the months continued, the village remained a hub for partisan activity. Her hands were still tied in ceremonies to honor tradition and solidarity, but no one doubted who held the real control. She had not only survived multiple raids, she had turned the concept of captivity on its head. The power of one carefully calculated act had shifted the balance in an entire region. By the time spring arrived, the village had transformed again, not just repaired, but fortified with knowledge, courage, and unity. Stories of her smile, the gun to her head, and the ensuing ambush were told quietly among villagers and traveling partisans. It became legend, a tale of hope that even in occupied lands, strategy, courage, and unbreakable composure could alter the course of history. In the end, she was remembered not as a victim, but as a master strategist, a signal of resistance, and the spark that lit the courage of an entire village. The officer thought he had controlled her fate. He did not realize that in smiling, she had already changed the world around her. And in that realization, the true power of defiance was revealed.